Hi everyone, welcome to round two of Sunway AB 2023. My name is Bea. I'm from Ateneo. I'm going to be your chair for today. Before I start, I have a couple of reminders for everyone. First, this is a Asian Parliamentary tournament, so I hope you listened quite keenly to the debate briefing that was given earlier this morning. A couple of important things to note probably. 7-minute speeches wherein you are protected from POIs from the 0 to first minute and the 6 to 7th minute. Second of all, no mandatory POI, but obviously it will be taken into account with regards to acknowledging the degree to which you were or were not engaging. Second of all, I highly encourage that you time yourselves, especially if you want to avoid overtiming or, for example, if you intend on raising or accepting a POI. And lastly, please just take note of common equity decorum. So we should be respectful about the people we are debating about, but also the people we are debating with. So in line with that, avoid generalizations, but also do not attack the people you are going against or even the people that you're debating with. Before I start, I just want to get some administrative things out of order. The first thing I want to ask is, what is your veto? So government, what's your motion veto?
Oh,
Oh, government. Oh, okay.
31.
30. What is your motion veto? Why? Okay, so we're debating on motion one about de-influencing, correct? Alright. When I call your name, please introduce yourself. So you can say your name, your speaking order. If you want to disclose, you can also say your preferred gender pronouns. First speaker on side government.
My name is Diksha, and I go by she, her. I'll be the first speaker.
Okay. Second speaker.
My name is Ria. I go by she, they, and I'm the second speaker.
Okay. Third.
My name is Kashmira and I'm the third speaker.
Okay. Who's your reply?
Yeah.
Thank you. Side negative first speaker.
Liana.
Okay.
Speaker pronouns.
Second.
Me, Ryan.
Okay. Third.
Kate.
Who's your reply?
Me, Ryan.
Okay. This is just for, call this, equity reasons. Later on, when you ask for personal comments, can you raise your hand, please, if you are a minor? So everyone in the office and I forgot it.
Oh, I forgot.
Okay. Yeah, we can start now. Debating on the motion about de-influencing, calling on first speaker on top.
Oh my god. Why am I opposite though? This is not the vibe. It's not my good side. Ugh. Okay. 1 minute. Where's my thing? Okay. I will begin in. Oh my god. I'll begin in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so I forgot. Sorry. Can I start over?
Yeah, I have it.
Oh, thank you. Oh my god. Sorry, it's my first debate. I'm quite nervous. Okay. I will start in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so before I begin, I would like to characterize a few of the important words I feel. So first off, I would like to characterize minority. So what does a minority mean? It means a small group of people, a very niche group. And this can be in many different forms in terms of race, sexuality, gender, ethnicity as well, or social class. So those are some examples. And next, I would like to characterize what influencers are. So it's people who have fame, who are actively promoting products in return for some money. Or if not money, they garner something else. There's a benefit to them. So next, I will characterize de-influencers, which are people who also have fame, but instead of actively promoting products, they are actively critiquing products and debunking false paid promotions, and in return, they do not really gain anything from this. So how do these two groups kind of carry out this is by using their fame. They have some sort of fame, that's why they are able to carry this type of promotions or debunking out. Moving on, I would like to point out my arguments, so which is uniqueness and congestion. And what I mean by this is, first of all, we have to understand that influencer, like, or the group of being influencers, is a very dense, I guess, job, or very dense area. Everyone wants to be an influencer. Everyone wants to get on YouTube, want to get on Instagram, be a model, be a YouTuber, make videos, get fame, get paid. Everyone wants to do this. If you go and search like YouTube videos of adults interviewing kids, most of them say they want to be a YouTuber. So this is a very densely populated area. So in order for people to join, I would say that it's a lot more difficult for people to get into this type of job scope. It's very difficult. It's it's not easy to get your big break, kind of. Like, it will take a lot of effort, and you have like 1,000 other people who arguably could be better than you. So it's not easy to gain recognition in this field. However, in the field of de-influencers, since it's an kind of a upcoming new category, I'd say, it's easier to break through in this category. And so, because not many people are doing it. Okay?
What is the likelihood of you being a minority background and people actually receiving your non-mainstream opinions in a good way, given that the reason why things are mainstream is because people buy into it?
Sorry, what?
What is the likelihood of people buying into your opinion, given that you're a
Okay.
minority background person, but also the fact that you hold opinions that are contrast to like the majority of people's opinion that have proven to be like very popular?
Sorry, could you repeat the last part?
What is the likelihood of people actually buying into your opinion, given that you are not expressing a mainstream opinion?
Oh, there we go. Okay, so of course the likelihood, okay, I wouldn't say it's like, it's not like, it's definitely not 100% that everyone will buy into your opinion, but because your opinion is different and niche, you definitely will have at least a small population that will agree with you. And it doesn't, in this sense, I would not say it matters that if your opinion is agreeable to the mass population. It's more important that it's your personal opinion, and if you feel like this is correct, then you will still vouch for it. And that is what makes the whole scene or category of de-influencers special, is because they are going against mainstream ideas. They are going against what everyone is already thinking or looking for or promoting. Okay, so back to my arguments. As I was saying, so since influencers are a very densely populated category, it's very difficult to break through. However, de-influencing is, I would say, since it's upcoming, it's easier to break through. So in this sense, people who choose to become de-influencers have a certain type of uniqueness to them, where they're able to garner more attention, possibly even fame, because not many people are doing the same thing. And in result to this, since not many people are doing the same thing, they are able to reach out to more people. This could garner them better opportunities, fame, support, and okay. My next argument would be because of them being a minority, and the whole like role of what a deep influencer is to be yeah. So first of all, because they are a minority, it is more comforting to see someone of your own kind to have their own platform and to be able to speak out. You would feel like there's some sort of sense of relatability there. You feel like you are not the only one who's like this. There's other people like you, and they are doing well, they're successful, they have fame, they probably have money, they are well respected. So that's the sense of relatability that the influencers can have because again it's a very niche community. Next for trustworthy, also it's it's no surprise that I'm sure like every race or ethnicity, when they see someone of their own kind, there is a sense of trust there already, despite not really knowing them. I guess it's just how tight knit communities work, or just community in general. So that will also add on to the trust factor. But also, because you can think of the influencer as sort of a myth buster, uh, that's why they are trustworthy because they are going against the opinion of the mass population, or they're debunking false promotions that are just made by influencers. Mm, and with that, I'd like to conclude my speech.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister. Let's call on leader of opposition.
Okay, this feels very weird, but okay. Okay. Your eyes. Sorry. Your eyes verbally. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. The de-influencing culture was the downfall of a minority's career to succeed on the social media platform. I think a few pieces of setup I'll actually bring to the table, I think was severely lacking in the first Prime Minister's speech to contextualize this debate and analyze the actors' interests. First, what does influencing culture looks like? What does it look like? It looks like influencing society to buy into positive aspects of things. Note panel is not likely going to be a harmful thing or a harmful, for example, like unhealthy body diets that cause you to starve. It is something that the majority of the public has tried out or buy into as a result of it being mainstream. So I think it's going to receive a lot of positive attention given that people buy into it. Second, we think that it looks like stuff like, for example, promoting makeup that looks inclusive, for example, that highlights the skin of the tone of my skin as a black person, or for example, that stuff that is environmentally friendly, right? But secondly, we think propositions, on the other hand, de-influencing culture has been entirely negative for them to actually stand out like they say they will. I think this one looks like being very woke and being very like, oh, I'm against the mainstream current kind of person. I think this necessarily gains a lot of negative attention, which I'll explain later in my speech. But secondly, we think you have to also directly name and shame certain brands or certain people in order for it to achieve some level of efficacy. Because if it's so vague, you're not really targeting anyone, are you, right? So I'll explain more of the harms of that also in my speech. But firstly, a few pieces of framing. Firstly, what's the actor's interest here? Note panel, this is an actor motion, right? So we think as an up and coming star, firstly, we think there exists a spectrum of influencers, but we think there are big people on social media, you being a relatively smaller influencer or de-influencer under their side, with no loyal fan base, or very small, much significantly smaller loyal fan base, with little to no established presence in comparison to other forms of like media influencers, right? We think the goal of yourself as an influencer, as an up and coming star, is to increase your popularity so that you can actually, like for example, represent your minority background better, but also to gain good presence on social media, to not get hate on it and such, right? So I think that also note of like influencing, right? I think also being promoting things that are good. For example, promoting like a movie that is good, like Black Panther or Michelle Yeoh. I think as long as like you don't actively say something is bad, I think we can also say under our side we can promote things that are good for your culture and good for that, because majority of people believe that Black Panther was good, right? So it's not it's still a mainstream opinion. You can still promote it under your channel. So one rebuttal towards their one-dimensional argument as to how you stand out amongst other people. First, I think they just assert this to be true, given that you are number one, a smaller channel. Number two, it's coupled with the fact that you have a non-mainstream opinion. I think it's unlikely that you'll go so viral insofar as you make these kinds of like changes and like you rise up to the top of the ranks just because you have one controversial opinion, because people have controversial opinions all the time, right? But secondly, we argue that it is bad fame, right? Even if you stand out in a bad way. I'll explain that in my speech. So moving on to my first argument of side of opposition, it's how you establish a negative presence in social media and you create backlash for your channel. Okay, what do you have to do as a de-influencer, right? First thing, you go against the mainstream wave, meaning that you have oppository takes towards certain opinions. For example, like I don't know, saying that Sephora is a trash brand or something, or something to say that really irks people. We think it is harder for people to buy into because number one, bigger influencers who promote mainstream culture and corporations already control the narrative in status quo through advertisements or through like their own forms of influencing. You are a smaller fan base with comparatively low, like smaller megaphone. But secondly, you actually like, I think this also like looks like the majority of YouTubers also agreeing with these like views, and their fan bases which are loyal to these people also agreeing and also harping onto this train of mainstream views, right? So what does this do? Firstly, you create a negative presence in your social media platform because of the fact that you actively going to critique mainstream and say that it's something is trash, right? I think the crucial framing here is that in order for people to actually be attracted to your like social media platform, our proposition has to support really polarizing opinions for them to get so famous to the point in which they get so viral. Please take note of that panel, because I think they have to say a lot of controversial things to be able to be that popular, right? So I think that this looks like, for example, trashing on popular healthcare routines, or like makeup brands like Dior and Sephora, or even trashing like the Hallyu culture. Like the Korean fan base is so big. Imagine trashing on like the Korean beauty standards or something like that. This literally calls on so many fan bases and so many like from Korean pop idols to like literally trash on your website as an example, like to say lah. But we think this looks like dropping comments on your videos, disliking your YouTube videos, and harping on and calling on their like fan bases or people who support that narrative to literally just like mess up your video, or to like to actually to actually like say bad things about it, right? This looks like the vegan teacher like account on YouTube, right? Like the vegan teacher literally like criticizes so many people who just eat meat. She's like, oh, this person eats meat, so bad. This person, this vegan teacher account has attracted so much of negative attention, and literally delegitimized a whole entire vegan movement in of itself, because she was seen as so radical and people thought she was unreasonable in criticizing every single meat eater, right? So I think the harm is that number one, haters will latch onto your channel to see you fall. We think insofar as on the other side they want to characterize these videos being viral, we think be viral in a bad way in which people already want to like send like harmful and like very harmful rhetoric towards your channel, right? I think there's also a current hate towards woke people in status quo on social media, like Lily Singh and something and other YouTube channels that people generally want to harp onto, right? So what's the comparative? Number one, you support a mainstream idea, meaning that you gain popularity first to number one, being coming from a minority background, right? Maybe for example, I can have a unique take, an opinion based on the fact that I have a minority background. For example, this makeup, I can say this makeup is good because it accentuates my black facial features, right? So I think you gain positive attention from the minority community insofar as your rise to fame is one that is brought out of positive emotions and positive views that people already agree with. I think we far better represent your minority background under our side, given that you're likely be able to rise to fame with positive feedback from people, especially from the majority culture or the majority like white people who think that minorities like influencers aren't as good. You directly influence them to to think differently. But panel, even if our rise to fame is not as rapid as government, or we don't achieve the same level of virality of government side, we gain a steady positive presence. We tell you that the backlash and hate that you will receive will far outweigh any forms of like major benefits of like going to fame, because it can be very mentally damaging for your mental health, and also for the fact that you're likely going to destroy your career, and people are likely going to like hate on you. So for all those reasons, I think opposition wins this debate from first.
Thank you so much, Leader of Opposition. Let's proceed with the debate with Deputy Prime Minister.
Oh yeah, you guys are right. This is very strange. This is not a good angle at all. Anyways, sorry. Oh my god, thank you so much. Can you like mirror it? Thanks.
You want me like what? This?
Oh, that's so much better. Thank you.
Alright.
Panel, I would like to begin my speech in. Wait, so sorry. Can I borrow your phone for timing? Panel, I'd like to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Side government is saying that you have the right to whatever freedom of expression that you want. Side opposition is saying you have to follow a herd. Now, before I get into that, allow me to just get into my rebuttals immediately. Now, the leader of side opposition said that basically their entire case is that you will actually, by going into the term of de-influencing, you'll actually create a negative presence, and thus you'll create more backlash. Now, they said that big influencers already control the status quo, and therefore they should just conform into whatever it is that they are saying, regardless of if it's true or not, because obviously side opposition, as we can all clearly tell, wants us to follow the herd. We are already a minority. As my first speaker already said, we are already a minority, guys. And on social media, it is really, really, really difficult for you to break into the echo chamber, because right now, as a minority, for example, it can either be like for your race, social class, your sexuality, sexual identification, all of that, it is really, really difficult for you as like an up and coming star, right? For example, let's just say like up and coming star. What does that mean? It means like as my my leader already said, you have some following. Maybe not a big one, but you already have some sort of like stable platform. So either way, even if let's just say you do get some negative backlash because you are going against status quo, you still actually have your loyal fan base that you've already built up. No, thank you. I'll take it later. Now, now allow me to just reinstate what we're trying to say. The fact of the matter is, if you are already a minority group, you're already a minority person, you're trying to break into the echo chamber of becoming an influencer, right? Do you not realize how the side opposition not realize how difficult it is to break into the echo chamber? You have like people like from all walks of life who just want to be influencers nowadays. They want to get that popularity. They want to get like these like presences on social media. They want their 5 minutes of fame. And how are they going to do it? They're gonna try to like take like the alternate route of just like doing whatever it is the influencers have been doing so far this entire time. They're gonna try and take like an alternate route. What is the alternate route that we're discussing today, ladies and gentlemen? It is de-influencing. De-influencing basically puts whatever that influencers are saying accountable, right? Because the influencers, their main purpose is to hold influencers accountable by whatever they're saying, whatever products that they are like saying that you should try this like really nice product for my skin and everything. It's really nice. What if that doesn't work on everyone? Because influencers actually they do not get to build trust with their fan base, which is exactly my third point right now for side opposition for side government's case. Now the thing is, when we talk about influencers, right, what is the first thing comes to your mind? Contracts. They're paid to review. Therefore, whatever that is being said by influencers, you cannot take it, you can only take it as at face value. You can't actually like 100% believe what they're saying because they're being paid by companies, by bigger corporations to review certain products. Therefore, whatever that they are saying, even though like maybe on camera they're like, oh, this is really good for my face and everything, I've got like a wide select of ranges for my no thank you, I'll take it later, for like my makeup brands, whatever. I personally, I like it, it's great. But then if you go to other people, maybe it doesn't work the same for them, which is why we need the influencers. We need a check and balance, ladies and gentlemen, which is the most important part of the influencers right now. And the influencers is a current rising trend. For example, on TikTok, right? You'll see like big corporations like trying to promote their skincare and everything, and they'll have like big influencers coming in and be like, oh, this product
really worked. It's great, guys. Everyone should get on it. And even side opposition said that it's a herd mentality, right? Even side opposition said you're more likely to achieve, no thank you. You're more likely to achieve success if you just like keep going with the herd, keep going with the flow. Just say whatever they're saying, guys. It's okay. Even if you don't believe that's true, even if you disagree with it, just go with it because you want success, right? That's the main goal, right? You want success. No, what we're saying is with the influencing, right? You can actually build a better and more cohesive and holistic fan base because you have trust, which is exactly our point for today. Trust. Influencers aren't that trustworthy because they're getting paid to review and exploit the loyalty of their fan base. Yes, I'll take it now.
What kind of the accountability structure to the people itself? If the product was so bad, people will obviously like say bad reviews about it, and that's not it being mainstream, right?
Yes, but like we said, if a lot of influencers are doing it, they're more likely to exploit the loyalty of their fan base regardless. Yes, sure. Obviously, people can obviously, like, the people and the reviews, two reviews, yes, they can obviously do a check and balance. But the point of the matter is, with influencing, as the motion already states, they can actually influence their people to already buy the products. Once a company has generated revenue, the job is done, right? Doesn't matter if it's good or bad. End of the day, they've achieved their goal. Right, the companies still get the revenue, influencers still get like their fame and everything like that. But the main issue right now is check and balance. It's accountability, which is what de-influencers do. For example, an example given out by side opposition earlier, Dior makeup and other things like that, right? What if like Dior makeup doesn't, as of right now, we have this really big issue of like shades, right? Especially for women, of like different color and everything. And as the motion says, you're an up and coming star with a minority background. High chances are you won't find the right shade for you. So with these de-influencers, right, they can actually like give a different approach. Instead of going to this particular brand who might like, this brand might have like some issues like concerning like equity and things like that, you also go to like other businesses, other smaller branches as well. You don't have to conform to the herd mentality that is specifically like going like onto one specific product and hyping that up all the time. You can break out of that chamber. You are allowed. Side government is saying that you are allowed to have a different opinion. You do not need to have the herd mentality of just following whatever side opposition is saying, which is following and succumbing to the current status quo of influencers supporting other like influencer products, right? Because that is not what we want. Is that really the kind of world the side opposition wants us to live in? That we are not allowed to have a different opinion if you just want to break out of the echo chamber? Side opposition is just saying that if you want to be famous, if you want to be successful, you have to follow the herd mentality. You have to follow whatever the current influencers are already saying in order for you to get a break. Which is what we are saying is completely wrong. Because when you are a minority, you come from a minority background on social media, right? You want to build that trust with your fan base. You want them to be like, okay, you know what? I can trust this person. I relate to this person. I know what they're saying. And you know what? They're breaking out of that chamber. They're not conforming to whatever it is that is already being said by popular influencers. So therefore, yes, they might get some backlash. I agree with you. They might get some backlash, but end of the day is, it said that they're an upcoming star. They already have a good fan base right there. And besides, if they break out of the echo chamber, if they say things that people do not agree with, and people oh, I don't agree with this influencer, yada yada yada, why, there's still gonna be people who agree with you at the end of the day. There's gonna be people who want to look out for people who have different opinions than what is the current status quo of what the influencers are saying. Which is why we're saying that for an upcoming star, de-influencing is actually a really good way for you to get your name out there, for you to still build up a much more loyal and niche fan base. With that, I'd like to strongly plead for this motion to be passed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, DPM. Let's call on Yellow.
No gender pronoun preference. You can refer to me as anything. Okay. Let me just go through my notes. Starting in 3, 2, 1. Panel, the optimism of proposition to assume that being an influencer will be so easy is exactly what entrenches the dystopian outlook on life as a minority individual. It is crucial to realize that finding peace and solace in the real world is already difficult when you're constantly excluded and discriminated. It is far worse when you threaten your own security and an agency of safety in your very own home. 3 things then I'll be talking about. Firstly, on popularity, secondly on backlash, and thirdly on expressing your own opinions, which is quite an odd clash, but I'll talk about it anyway. First clash then on backlash. I think Prop tries to claim that de-influencing is good because you get to stand out and have a larger breakthrough in the social media platforms. I'm going to weigh this out then between popularity and backlash, because I just want you to realize that having popularity through critiques is not that likely, especially when you're going against mainstream, because they just simply asserted that having opportunities and supporters is something that's good, but they literally provided no mechanistic analysis as to how they're actually going to get there. They never provided us the roadmap. But regardless, I'll touch this more in my argument and flag the impacts of this then. But secondly then is on the popularity, because I think Prop claims that there are many individuals do want to be influencers, and therefore that is why our opinion, especially when going with mainstream, will be probably diluted. I'll be dealing with the dilution argument in my argument as well, but I just want to note that they claim that they want to stand out because they want to use de-influencing and therefore they critique to already get that breakthrough. But I already weighed this out because I'm going to weigh this later in my argument to prove why that is not necessarily going to work. But next thing they claim was that there's relatability and trust in the factors of growing influence in these social media platforms. That they realized that they needed relatability in the viewers, and they also needed the trust that these opinions are something that is relevant and are actually reliable. But at the same time, realize that their entire case is actually going against the entirety of mainstream popular opinions. So I'm not sure where you actually get the relatability there, especially when you're trying to actually go against the entire wave of individuals having that very same opinion then. But thirdly then is about expressing your own opinions, and I think this is very crucial, because I think what both houses can agree is that both of us can literally just have our own opinions and selectively choose what we want to have an opinion about. That is to say, the difference on both sides then is the methods in which we choose how we actually express these set opinions. That is to say, we are either going to critique or support these mainstream media. But here's where the contention comes in, because DPN then attempts to claim that we are locked to mainstream opinions and we are going to be sheep of what the opinions of society are. I'm going to deal with this in a few rebuttals, because firstly, this is simply not true. Because we can selectively choose what we want to support. But secondly, it's the fact that your entire fan base under Proposition team is full of people who like your critique on mainstream content. And in fact, here's the flip on their side, because your entire followers are constantly asking for critiques in the mainstream media. And I'll talk about the comparative later. But thirdly then, they then claim that they want de-influencing because they want checks and balances in social media. But this is literally just about us as the minority minority individuals who are trying to get into content creation. This is not just about the entirety of social media, it's just about one individual who is just basically the actor in this motion at hand. So these checks and balances still exist. It is about the interest of the actor at hand and what we prefer to choose to do in the social media platforms. But secondly, on Liana's point, it is also extremely true that checks and balances still exist insofar as it's not necessarily true that we have to be the ones that we're de-influencing. But lastly then, I just also want to note that de-influencing is literally going to contrast the entirety of the mainstream opinions. And this is going to be even worse, because note, even if we are going to be tied into societal opinions of what the mainstream media is good or not, at least these are opinions in which mainstream individuals, where millions of individuals worldwide agree with. What they have to support then is a world in which they defend de-influencing and critiquing the opinions and going against all their expressing their discontent towards the opinions of the mainstream media against all the millions of individuals worldwide. Therefore, even if they wanted to argue that we are chained towards mainstream opinions, they're the ones who actually have to stick towards these de-influencing culture, and that is why its power was on their side, especially when they have to go against the entirety of mainstream media. Moving on to my argument on how this creates a trickle-down effect towards the stigmatization of these minorities. The aim of these influencers then is quite simple, because all they want to do is just to be popular and to be relevant in media to get the followers they want. But secondly, especially as a minority, you want to have a good representation of your own minority community. What then is important here? Because I just want you to realize that we are an up and coming influencer. What this means then is two pieces of framings. Firstly, I think you have some loyal supporters in your fan base, but that also means you also have some vulnerability to actually be involved in controversial topics. But secondly, I think you also have to realize how social media works, because it is very easy to become a hater in social media, but rather on the contrary, it's very very hard to be supported and relevant in social media platforms. What then does this mean? Firstly, it is easy to get alienated in social media, especially when you're using critiques as a way and a roadmap in which you get popularity. Because realize that in mainstream media, there's a lot of people who actually support these mainstream contents, and the reason why they're popular in the first place is because millions of individuals actually support these mainstream media. What this means then is that content generation on their side will either be A, too less, or B, irrelevant and something that's too nitpicky for society to actually support. Because it is difficult to identify critiques in mainstream media when millions of individuals support said media, and it is simply a lot easier to just show our support and the positive effects of this media being placed in this media platform in the first place. But secondly, realize that lots of people will also hate towards your minority community, especially when you are an up-and-coming influencer who is a representative of your own community. And this creates a stereotype, which is extremely harmful. And this is something that's brilliantly analyzed by Liana. Because realize that when you have to nitpick mainstream media, what happens then is that your entire content will become super woke. You will nitpick the very small things, and this looks like critiquing based on minority experiences. Like, for example, just the vegan teacher attacking every single individual, every single content creator, no matter what they do, just because they are not practicing the culture of veganism. And this is extremely harmful, because realize that it's extremely difficult to identify huge mistakes or huge misconceptions in mainstream media, because they're mainstream for a main reason, because there's very little mistakes and little misconceptions, which is why a lot of people support them. But unfortunately, one more thing that is important to note here is that death threats are not something within our control, but it is an inherent toxic trait of social media platforms. That people who critique K-pop culture, no matter how many disclaimers they give, they always get cancelled in social media platforms. Why then is this so harmful? Because of two reasons. Firstly, you lose your own capacity to feel safe, even in your very own home, where your dream was once to find peace in a content creation, and it becomes a traumatic experience when all you have are just nasty comments you read on a daily basis. But secondly, you lose supporters and you lose the minority representation you wanted, but even worse, on their side, your minority community is the ones who are stigmatized to be the ones who are harmful in society. The comparative on our side is that we have more supporters, because it's comparatively easier to get more supporters with positive material, and it's just really hard to support someone who's constantly complaining. But secondly, that minority representation is exactly what we can get, because we realize that we have more supporters, and that influence is something that is exclusive on opposition bench. For all those reasons, it is clear that opposition takes this debate opposed.
All right, thank you, Deputy Leader of Opposition. Let's proceed with the debate with Government Whip.
I'll start with my rebuttals first. I would like to rebut our POI, the POI we received just now, in regarding saying that how it's like likelihood of success from being a de-influencer gains
given that you're not giving mainstream opinion. So what we like to say is that, as what my government leader said before, she said that even if it's not a mainstream, it is niche and unique, and you're still gonna get attention. That's for the POI just now. And I would like to reinstate whatever that my PM and DPM spoke earlier. We spoke about, okay, we brought out saying that how de-influencers actually would, how de-influencers would help in fame, uniqueness, and conjunction, trust in trustworthiness, and also in how they can be influential, and also the accountability. Okay. Hold on. Okay. Diallo spoke earlier. Okay, Diallo spoke regarding saying that about the popularity and the method that we chose, and also he spoke about how it's easier to be alienized when we use criticism. Um, what do you call this? Oh shit. Forgot my point. Sorry, forgot. Is it possible to restart?
Sorry, it's
How?
past 1 minute already, so you
Okay.
can just continue.
Okay, how many minutes already?
Already 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I'll continue. Okay, let me just speak about de-influencing. Okay, de-influencers basically it's as what we have spoken earlier. Compared to de-influencers and in influencers, it's basically is what, like what they said. It's all on the method. At the end of the day, both of it, it's just the way of how we are conveying, and the way of how we are advertising certain brand or product over here. And why we are saying that de-influencers, why we are supporting de-influencers is because, okay, for de-influencers, as what we spoke earlier regarding the fame and the uniqueness, is that when the influencers have already kind of like they have, they don't seem to like um uh see, basically influencers, they have been paid to do certain things. So when they have paid to advertise, and when they've already been tied to a certain contract, they've tied to something that's they are forced to actually
POI?
yes, I'll take your POI.
You can still pick and choose what you want to promote. So if the product is
Mm-hmm.
that bad and it got so much criticism, you
Mm-hmm.
obviously won't promote it, right?
Okay, I wouldn't say that we wouldn't promote it unless if we are not tied to that certain contract. It depends on the person at the end of the day. So if regardless, I'm saying that in case that person has already been tied to that particular contract, and they have already been paid to promote that certain brand or the product, they are forced to actually promote it in a positive way and in a good way, regardless of, no matter if the thing is other ways. Whereas the de-influencers, on the other hand, these people are independent. So when they are independent and they are not tied to any sort of a platform or any sort of a brand or a company, these people's reviews and these people's opinion would be even more credible, logically speaking. I'm just saying in a logically speaking way, it will be even more credible, because these people are basically people who have who are minority, who has a very minority, comes with a minority background, who has who is not tied to anything. And these people are basically lame, I wouldn't say laymen, but these people are people who tends to engage with the people out there even more. So when they engage themselves to these people out there, and they how to say, they share their honest opinions and honest reviews, in return, they would turn to become even more trustworthy, and they will actually eventually they will actually gain fame through that, because people will start to trust them and people will start to know them personally, and through that way they will gain the fame. And since our motion is also talking about an upcoming star, this would actually help that particular individual over here. And uh, what else? And this can also be relatable to a smaller group, and also not just majority. And let me see. And talking about congestion. Okay, congestion over here. There are too many influences over here that has already been, who has all this who comes from a different backgrounds, and they have been these people, we can't be like competing with all these people, and the market is too congested and filled with these influences. So whereby when this happens, the influencers on the other hand, these people start being how to say, as what I say, like in a unique way. So in a unique way, they look for a different platform. For example, TikTok. Let's talk about TikTok. How TikTok has actually how TikTok actually plays a major role in the influencer's life. So these people basically what do you call this, they promote products and brands that are not that are not high end products, or high end yeah, not high end products or brands that comes from a high end company. And these people are not tied to any sort of, it's not a paid review. So when it's not a paid review, these people kind of what do you call this, promote. Yes, time's up. Okay, so these people over here, they tend to what do you call this? What was I saying? I forgot my point. Okay, these people would actually shit, I forgot my point. I'm so sorry. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Government Whip. To now close off the substantive part of this debate, let's now start with opposition vote.
Oh, okay. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. The most important thing in this debate is the interest of the minorities. You want a loyal fan base, a growing number of supporters, and the support of society to further help your cause, right? You don't want to enrich society, to garner backlash, to only be unique but for a bad light, and to only further stigmatize yourself as a minority and also harming your community. We tell you that on our side you're able to garner trust because these are mainstream ideas, which means that it's very easy for society to trust your ideas, it's very easy for you to gain loyal supporters, it's very easy for you to gain general likes of society, and therefore helping to promote your content and to promote your minority group. On their side, it's hard to gain trust because not only are you going against the social norm, but you're also criticizing mainstream ideas when people don't like being proven wrong, which means you're only going to garner further hate towards your cause, garner further backlash, and this is extremely harmful if you want to escape the toxic stereotypes of society pinning down minorities as people who are too different to be seen to integrate into society. Before I move on to clashes, I would first like to make a few clarifications and rebuttals.
The first thing that they said is about how you need check and balances, and this is when the influencers come in. We want to tell you that first of all, you can have check and balances on our side either way, because people on the ground, if it's a bad product, they're obviously going to put in reviews or like bad like reviews of these products, which therefore means you also get that check and balance, right? And even so, if that product is harmful, you don't have to necessarily promote it, because if you don't want to promote it, you don't have to, which means you can still like pick these like products that you want to promote, right? And you talk about how like your loyal fan base like might like not even support you in the first place, right? I tell you that like on our case it's a lot more better, because like the influencers, they gain us like a fan base in the first place because they're influencing a positive idea, they're influencing a mainstream product. But now they're switching that role to de-influencing, which means that your fan base would not even be that loyal. You're going to lose supporters because you're not supporting something that they actually like. And this means that you're now an influencer with no support. We have further things like, for example, death stats, or like further like dislike in like comments, which makes your mental health a lot more worse, which makes you feel as if you're not able to fulfill your goal as an influencer, right? And then you talk about this interesting thing about how like, oh, there's things like contracts. So like you have to promote the product that you're contracted to. We tell you that you're, like the moment you're only able to get that contract if you promote something that you like and is beneficial to even get that contract in the first place. So it's likely going to be something that is beneficial and it's something that is liked upon, which means that your contract is something that you support and you want to do it in the first place. But even on our worst case, where that contract is promoting a bad product, at least you still get like, for example, things like money from doing it. You're still able to gain that funds to help further your cause, to help like provide further empowerment for minority workers and etc. Right? So moving on then to my clashes. There are two main clashes in this debate. First is which side do these minorities stand out and are unique with positive feedback, and secondly, which side helps represent the minority community in a positive light. Before I move on, sure. So based on your earlier statement, so you do actually agree that regardless or not, even if it is a bad contract, they can still accept it because it will still help their career. Thank you very much.
I think that's the thing that is going to happen on the worst case, right? Which is something that we don't entirely support, but it's your worst case that can happen. We tell you that on our side of the house, we want to support these like minorities, like upcoming stars. We want to avoid controversy, which mostly means that the contracts they're going to pick are those products that they like and are those products that they support. Which therefore means on our side of the house, those contracts are beneficial contracts compared to yours side of the house, where you're only going to garner further backlash, you're only garner further bad contracts towards something that you want to get, which means that it's going to be more harmful towards your side of the house as compared to ours. Moving on then towards like the clashes, right? The first clash, which side do these minorities stand out and are unique with positive feedback? The thing about government is that your idea is that, oh, influencing is so good because you're able to stand out, you're able to be unique because not many people do it and therefore you can garner fame so easily. We tell you that you stand out, sure, but you stand out for bad reasons. And there are two reasons to this. Firstly, they gain a negative reputation. Sure, they gain fame, but most of that fame is harmful, which means you're mostly going to get things like hateful comments, things like, for example, death threats and dislikes towards you. You're going against a mainstream idea that is a social norm. The moment they see these harmful comments or negative talk about them is the moment when they feel that their content is not appreciated, they stop influencing, they stop de-influencing, they stop doing this career because you're not getting supported by it. You gain like fame, but it's bad fame, you gain a bad reputation. People are mostly going to leave you in the future because you do not support something that they want you to support. But then secondly, about how they garner backlash, right? We tell you that when people dislike their content as it goes against a mainstream idea. And this is especially harmful because you're a minority. And as an interest of minority, right, since people do not like well accept minorities in the first place, can you imagine that further harm and hate you're getting towards yourself? Going against a mainstream idea and also being a minority is only going to add on to that increasing amount of threat and like harm, right? We tell you about how people hate on your content, they don't want to watch it anymore because they don't like to be proven wrong, they don't like their ideas to be disregarded, which therefore means that as your interest as a minority, you aren't able to like destigmatize yourself as being too different from society, you aren't able to garner money and support to help support like your minority community, right? We tell you that like getting this backlash is not only harmful towards you as an influencer, but it's also harmful towards the perception of your whole minority community. Moving on to the second clash, which I think is fairly important, right? Which side helps represent the minority community in a positive light? We tell you that government says that, oh, like it doesn't matter even if it's bad fame because you still get fame and people still gain like people still have like this like fame that you get, and like it's important to have freedom of speech.
On opposition, we tell you precisely that because you're a minority is the reason why you don't want that harm to increase tenfold. Because there are several reasons. Firstly, minorities are not well accepted and now they want to go against mainstream ideas. We tell you that as an up-and-coming star, it means that your fan base isn't even so big in the first place to have that loyal support, which means that you still want to grow and like get more followers to support you, which means that you want to avoid controversy, you want to avoid you want to gain more support. We tell you that it's not about freedom of speech, but rather as a minority you want to avoid that hate. You need to gain more supporters, and it's like it's not a good idea to further enrage these people, to further like ask these people that flock away from you because you're not supporting a mainstream idea. We take this as a bad idea. You're unable to garner help for your society, minority community as a whole. But they talk about how things like minorities should have freedom of speech. We tell you that is sure that can happen, but that can happen on outside the house too, because that's not their best interest as of now. Because only as an influencer, right, you want to be able to gain followers and support. You want to be able to grow that fan base to a larger amount, which means that in the end, when you're now a large influencer, it's easier to promote more about your minority culture. It's easier to promote more about what you want as a minority now that you're able to have that loyal fan base. And that only gets started when you're able to promote content that is mainstream, that is well liked, that is something that society majority enjoys so much. So you gain supporters, you gain funds, you gain money, you gain a loyal supporter, right? So why is our comparison a lot better? Because we tell you that as a minority, it's important to maintain a good reputation and perception and gain viewers, right? Promoting mainstream products is something that is well accepted, it's well liked, and people support it because they use it too. Which means you also have that sense of relatability on outside the house because these products are something that majority of the people use. We tell you that you're able to offer your own unique opinion, which is how you stand out as a minority, because you're able to gain fame due to your own minority perception of these products. This is how you're able to diverse perspective thinking. This is how you're able to stand out as a minority among other influencers. So in conclusion, we tell you that if you want to further help destigmatize your minority community, to further help support yourself as a content influencer, and also for support and break toxic stereotypes of minority communities, you should vote for side opposition. Thank you.
Alright, thank you, Opposition Whip. Let's now open up reply exchange, starting off with Opposition reply.
Starting in three, wait, hold on. Starting in 3, 2, 1. The lives of minorities have been strictly locked down by predominant societal perceptions. They have to face societal discrimination, and they have to face police brutality in the outside world. And Proposition chooses to burden them with an additional unjust stereotype, all because you, as a common minority influencer, had to nitpick little mistakes in mainstream media that all leads to backlash and unjustified stigmatization. We choose to be influencers because we want to have a safe space for the representation of our own communities. Proposition turns it into a hellhole, and they crush their own dreams and hurt their own minority community. 3 things then I'll be talking about. Firstly, on the popularity, secondly, on minority representation, and lastly then on the freedom of expression that Proposition keeps harping on about. Firstly then on popularity. Under this clash, I want to identify 3 things then. Firstly, on the likelihood of viewership and support, secondly on the sustainability of these influencers, and lastly on backlash. So firstly, who better gets these quality viewerships? Because I just want to note that in this debate, it is not necessarily who gets more viewership, but rather who gets better and beneficial viewership and better supporters initially. So even if they want wanted to argue some sort of breakthrough is the fact that we support a more viewership of a tendency where these individuals are generally more supportive of us. Sure, we may concede to the fact that proposition might have more attention, but that attention is harmful insofar as it actually hurts our minority representation and it delegitimizes our stance as a minority community. But secondly, then on sustainability, I think it is just literally hard to sustain critiquing mainstream media because two outcomes that they have to defend. Because firstly, if they attempt to fulfill all that content generation, at one point it's going to become irrelevant because there's just too much wokeness in the critique of your de-influencing of these mainstream media, especially when the vast majority of individuals agree with the mainstream media. But secondly, if you don't create these content, you lose content generation and you lose viewership as well, which is also which affects you on a mental level because it literally kills you that you always have to generate content that hates on mainstream media. And this is also another level to prove why they are the ones who actually get coerced to do these content generation and these de-influencing and critiques independent of their own analysis or contracts. But lastly then on backlash, because even if you get a breakthrough, the backlash that you get literally kills off all your representation, and they have never literally responded to this at all. Because even in our worst case scenario where we do not perhaps get any supporters, we would rather be labeled as a content creator who is secret and caters towards minorities rather than an outrageous minority who is always radical and always gives odd takes. Secondly then on minority representation, I think it is just saddening that proposition never engages with this because they've barely proven why their representation would manifest in their counterfactual and to be something that's actually beneficial. Because what we told you from opposition is, one, the reason why representation is worse on proposition is because of three reasons. Firstly, that stereotype exists. Secondly, that their content is overly woke. And lastly, that it either becomes too irrelevant or too less content because it is mainstream media. But the reason why it's better on opposition is because we are linked to lived experiences from these mainstream media, which actually caters towards both the mainstream and minorities. And secondly, that there's high subjectivity and appreciation for these content, so there's a vast majority of diverse opinion given. And lastly, that more people will find our channel insightful, especially when the mainstream content individuals can actually take a look at what this media looks like towards minority communities. No response, we take this clash. Last clash then on the freedom to express. Here's the way. Companies can't just grab your hand and force you to sign the contract, right? You're still free to choose if you agree to the contract or not. But secondly, sure, let's be more charitable than we need to and just literally assume that we were forced to take this contract. The comparative of influence then is better than de-influencing because one, it is highly unlikely that mainstream content would be that bad, especially when millions of people support it. That's to say you would get less backlash if you were just supporting it. But secondly, even if it was forced, comparatively we're better off because we don't have to deal with the burden of being forced to generate de-influencing content over time. And then they argue about checks and balances, and this already happens because realize that this is an actor motion and it's only one influencer in the entire social media platform. Their point literally becomes irrelevant. So three things to realize then. That firstly, this debate was never about the freedom to choose, because to choose what you believe in, but still we crush them on that. Secondly, this debate was never about checks and balances, but we still crush them on that. But this debate was about being a representative of your own community. That having more supporters is the only way you can actually succeed in the toxic culture and nasty remarks of social media. For all those reasons, we give minorities the capacity to choose, and that is why you should choose opposition bench.
Thank you, opposition reply. Let's have this debate with government reply.
I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Minorities have had their voices drowned out for so long, and opposition bench wants that to continue. Now, before I get into that, allow me to just state that the main clashes of this debate that we as a government can see. Number 1, popularity. Number 2, backlash. Now, in terms of backlash, they keep saying that de-influencers are spreading hate, but they're not generalizing it. You know, they're okay. Before I get into that, let's just say one thing. We don't want minorities to follow a herd. Side opposition thinks that
Like, all the influencers do is just talk bad about people and organizations and companies to an extreme. They gave us isolated cases, such as the vegan teacher. Those are isolated cases and cannot be used in today's debate because that is a generalizing statement. Now, we just want to tell people that, hey, these products and lifestyle may not be applicable and good to all, and here's why. And by the way, here are also some alternatives to that as well, which is why de-influencers, especially as a minority, is actually a pretty good thing. Now, they're making it seem like de-influencers are villagers with angry pitchforks, like outside screaming with like fire and stuff. But that is not the actual case, guys. Let me just say one thing. They also said that check and balances, which is literally the main point of de-influencers, is literally to provide check and balances. They're saying that it's irrelevant to our case because people already do it anyways. No, this is, okay, yes, sure, people can leave reviews and things like that, but they need someone to stand out for themselves. They need someone to stand up and like use their voice so that they can actually start like a movement against like this particular brand that's like, okay, maybe everyone thinks this brand is so good, but in reality, behind the scenes, you're doing something bad, right? Influencers are promoting something bad, but people don't know about it, right? So what can the influencers do? They can highlight how bad the company or the product that actually is, how maybe like they violate some certain like health standards or health codes or whatever, and then they can actually provide a voice and be like, hey guys, I know what is wrong with this product. You should not listen to all of these other influencers who are giving you like all like rainbows and sunshines and unicorns about this particular product and service. These are the actual facts of what's happening behind the scenes, right? That is the main point of the influencers, not to go out and spread hate speech and everything like the vegan teacher like they gave, which is a very, very, very isolated case and is not credible in today's debate. Now, we're saying that you'll have more credibility due to minority background and you're not tied to anything, because unlike what side opposition is actually saying, these influencers, in fact, are actually being paid. They're being paid to review. Yes, you can have the option to like, oh, this product is actually bad. I don't think I like this product. I'm gonna scrap it. But as an up and coming influencer, you need to take as many contracts as you can because you want to build up that repertoire. You want to build up that connection with other companies as you go up and you go big, right? So because of that, you'll be more likely like to be heard as a de-influencer on the other hand, because you get that check and balance. You get to go against the status quo. You don't have to force yourself to break into the echo chamber that is already so congested with these wannabe influencers on YouTube and TikTok and Twitch and other things like that, right? Because by diverting and going against the current status quo, by going against like the notion that, oh, like this product is bad, we should stand up and we should like not follow this product, we should not listen to these influencers. Side opposition is completely denying that. They're not understanding the point of today's debate, that the fact that these are minority people, they deserve to have their voices heard. Now, side opposition wants to produce more false influencers, which is actually harmful because you're falling into the industrial norms. They're telling you that your freedom of speech is irrelevant and should not be allowed just because you're a minority. Are you trying to say that just because you're a minority and you have a different view than what is the current status quo, than what 1,000 people have, that your voice is not allowed and not deserve to be heard? Is that truly the side opposition wants us to believe in? Now, we want minorities' voices to be heard. It is their right. Instead of like following the mold by corporations want, we have to have trust and transparency, which is what de-influencers have. Unlike influencers, especially because you're a minority, you want trust, which I will now prove by reinstating the current points of side government today. Now, what we want, by having an up-and-coming star as a minority background, you get to have uniqueness, because you have something that no one else is talking about. That you get to break out of the echo chamber. You don't have to force yourself to get into such a congested way and stuff from the ground up. And last but not least, you have trust with your very unique and niche audience. With that, I'd like to strongly have the House to approve this motion without further ado. Thank you very much.
Alright, that wraps up the debate. Thanks, government reply. So I'm soloing, so you guys can just go out, and then I'll call you back in a few minutes. Thank you. Across the House as well.